Hey everybody, this is your Coronado Market Minute. I'm going to be doing these videos weekly, going to try to do them weekly anyway, with an update on the Coronado neighborhood and the market statistics that we're seeing. A lot of change in the market right now. I think there's some value to doing these videos. I am going to be doing them actually for quite a few neighborhoods over time. I'm trying to get my feet wet with the whole video thing, so bear with me a little bit. They're going to be a little longer than a minute, but I'm still going to call them a Coronado Market Minute for the time being. For this week, we are going to kind of go over a lot of different stats. I actually am going to post a video just explaining what each of these different charts that I'm going to be showing mean, just for future reference. But I think this gives an accurate picture of what we're kind of seeing in the market today. I have compiled all these stats myself from MLS. These are not from Cromford or anything like that. One of the reasons I see value in this is that Cromford only breaks it down by zip code. In Central Phoenix, first of all, the zip codes are weird. I don't know if you've ever looked at a zip code map, but zip codes like 85016 and 85014, 85007 in particular, some of those go from clear up in far north Phoenix, 85004 and 85032. They go from North Phoenix down into the central parts of the valley, or central parts of the city. Some of those downtown zip codes go from, some of the midtown neighborhoods all the way down into South Phoenix neighborhoods. So they don't really give an accurate picture. South Phoenix, nothing against it at all, but it does function quite a bit differently than some of these Central Phoenix neighborhoods do. So really thought there's a little bit of value in doing this. So I am going to give it my best shot. I've only been collecting this data for Coronado for about 5 weeks. So right now we're just going to get a real short snapshot. Over time, this data will become more and more valuable the longer I compile it. Over the course of a year, we'll start to see like seasonal trends. We'll be able to compare year over year what we're doing. But for now, I think there's still value in some of the shorter term data. So here we go. Okay. So here we are looking at some of the data that I have compiled in Excel. Now these are a little bit primitive. I'm going to work on these graphs, but we're getting the data that we need right now. So you can see here I've got 6 weeks of data. I just started recently tracking new listings. Let's dive right into this data. So number of active homes that we can see here is generally pretty flat. I've kind of had a little bit of a up and down. I wouldn't call that as anything statistically significant. It's only a difference of about 5 homes between the top and the bottom there. Mostly flat. So typically we would expect this to have spiked early part of the year and then gradually drop throughout the rest of the year. So usually have an onslaught or a big spike in inventory early on in the spring season, and then we absorb that kind of throughout the rest of the year. We are not seeing that right now. It's pretty flat overall in the Coronado neighborhood. Not a lot of change there. Coming soon, we had a little spike there towards the end of February, and it's kind of generally been dropping since. Not a lot can be gleaned from this. It might be that we're seeing a slowdown in new listings. It might be that there are fewer kind of top of the line homes that are hitting the market. A lot of homes don't go coming soon unless they're kind of a little higher end. So not to read into this a whole lot just yet, but interesting that it may be telling us where we're going. The pending is dropping a little bit. That is not a good sign. I would call that a red flag. That should be increasing at this particular time of year. This is our peak season, so we should be seeing this go up quite a bit. The fact that it's dropping is not a good sign. With more data, obviously, is needed, but we will see that if that ends up being a big problem for us. New listings are going to skip over. We only got 2 weeks of that data. Sold in the last 30 days. We've seen that kind of gradually climb. It dropped a little bit last week, but I would say that generally that's been climbing. That's to be expected this time of year. These are actual closed homes, so that's the number of closings that we've had each week over the last 30 days. That's a rolling number. Sold the last 6 months is kind of flat. I wouldn't call that a great number. The fact that it's dropped a little bit in the last couple of weeks is that we had a little higher numbers last summer when this data was first coming on. So we will keep an eye on that. That is also potentially not a good sign. The average median and average list price, I'll talk about those kind of in tandem. I only track median in case there's a big anomaly in the pricing. If there's a huge gap between these numbers, then we might have some noise in the data, meaning a lot of really high priced or a lot of really low priced homes. Coronado, we see some fixer-uppers from time to time. Sometimes those will drag that number down. In this case, they're pretty close, so we're just going to talk about them in tandem. The average appears to show that sellers are moving to drop a little bit more in Coronado. They're coming to terms with maybe some realities of pricing in this market. That happens seasonally, that we see prices drop a little bit every year. This is just very, very early. So there's a lot of listings on the market overall. We have there's a lot of competition for sellers, and this may be some signs of them coming to terms with a different kind of market. The average list price current, that's where we're at right now. That's where the pricing is today. The average original list price is where we're hitting the market. So this gives you an idea of what the seller's expectations are. We saw a spike in the beginning of this month, and then we've seen some drop in the last couple of weeks. Again, that might be a sign that we're seeing some listing agents as well as some sellers come to terms with a changing market. So average price drop, we're seeing that start to climb. I would call this a sign of future concessions. If you're thinking about selling your home in Coronado, you might have a little different market than you would have had even a year ago today. Again, this data is relatively short term. We'll begin to see where this plays out over the course of the next month or two, but that's where we're at. Average sales prices have not dropped. We're seeing kind of a real gradual, steady incline in those. Not a huge amount over the last 30 days. Those kind of lag the price drops and the pending sales, that sort of thing. So we may see those drop if the market, the inventory situation in the market continues in the same direction it's going today. Average sales price over the last 6 months, you can see that's climbed. Had about a $15,000 jump over the last 6 months in prices. That's to be expected, again, with seasonality. Third and fourth quarters, particularly fourth quarter, tends to be our slowest quarter of the year. Average days on the market, you can see this is dropping a little bit. That's, again, probably more reflective of the seasonality of the market for both of those. Average days on the market closed are the actual homes that have closed. We've seen that drop some a little bit, about 4 days there over the last couple of weeks. That is probably the beginnings of the absorption of the spring market. Our spring market started a little later. It seems to be kind of ending a little earlier as well. Again, we'll see if that data bears out. But then average days on the market, active and pending, you can see there that those have dropped as well. Those are the ones that are still on the market. If there's a big gap between these two, that means we've got some people that are holding on to their prices and not wanting to drop them and not really as motivated to sell. Okay, so just to sum things up a little bit, based on what we're seeing there on those charts and graphs, we are kind of seeing some mixed signals in the market. Average sales are more or less flat. The pending sales have dropped a little bit, and we're seeing prices kind of hold steady. There are some signs that we're seeing some increased seller urgency. So we have seen listing prices drop. There's a potential that prices themselves could drop. We will see. We'll see how the interest rates go. That can change things quite a bit. If you have any questions, you can call me at 480-694-7643 or leave a comment in the remarks, and I will reach out to you there. Thanks.